For the past few years, Intel has kind of felt like the underdog in a chip war that it used to completely dominate. But they just dropped their latest earnings report, and the big question on everyone's mind is this: is the comeback finally, for real, happening? So today we're going to break it all down, the numbers, the strategy, and their huge bets, to see what's really going on.
And this quote from Intel's CEO, Lip-Bu Tan, really sets the stage. He's making it clear that this isn't just some one-time lucky break. He's talking about a pattern, 4 straight quarters of getting things right. And that idea, that steady progress, is really the theme we're going to explore.
So what's the big headline here? The main takeaway is that Intel just delivered a really solid quarter. They beat expectations on pretty much every single important metric. And that's sending a huge signal to the market that their ambitious comeback plan is finally starting to get some real traction.
And you got to understand, this isn't just a blip on the radar. After years of struggling with manufacturing delays and just fierce competition, a lot of people are looking at this and thinking it could be a real turning point, a fundamental shift in where the company is headed long-term.
But, talk is cheap, right? Promises and plans don't really move the stock price. Results do. So, okay, let's dive into the financials and see what the numbers are actually telling us.
First up, the big one, revenue. Intel pulled in an incredible $13.7 billion. Now, that's not just a massive number on its own. It totally blew past what the company themselves predicted. That tells you demand for their stuff is super strong right now. Next, let's look at gross margin, which came in at 40%. This number is absolutely crucial. It's a measure of how profitable they are. And not only did it beat what everyone was expecting, it's a huge improvement from last year. Basically, it means they're making more money on every single chip they sell. And all that profit, well, it flows right down to the bottom line. Their earnings per share landed at 23 cents. Now get this, their guidance was to basically break even, to make zero profit. So 23 cents is a huge beat. It shows they're managing costs well and just running the business efficiently.
And if you look at their revenue over the last 3 quarters, you can see this isn't a fluke. It's not a one-off spike. You can see a clear, steady climb. It's the kind of stabilization and growth that really backs up this whole turnaround story. Okay, so where is all this growth actually coming from? Well, it's not happening by accident. It's being driven by a super clear strategy, and it has a massive focus on the single biggest thing happening in tech today, AI. And the CEO is not being shy about their ambitions here. He's saying, hey, we are just in the early stages of the AI revolution, and he believes Intel can and will play a much more significant role. This is clearly their North Star for the future. But their AI strategy is actually pretty specific. You can break AI down into 2 main parts. First, there's AI training. Think of that as building the giant models, basically creating the brain. Then you have AI inference. That's where you're using those models for real-world tasks. That's the action. Intel thinks the real money, the much bigger market, is in inference, and that is exactly where they're aiming their firepower. So how do they get a piece of that action? By teaming up with the undisputed king of AI, NVIDIA. And this is a huge deal. Think about it. For these complex AI jobs, you need NVIDIA's GPUs to do the super heavy lifting, but you still need Intel's fast CPUs to manage everything and keep the whole show running. By linking their technologies together, they're creating this incredible 1-2 punch. This isn't about Intel trying to beat NVIDIA. It's about making sure that an Intel CPU is an absolutely essential part of the AI world that NVIDIA is building. All right, so that's the AI play. But there's a whole other pillar to their strategy, and it's just as ambitious. It's not just about designing their own chips anymore. It's about building chips for everybody. And that brings us to this word, foundry. For decades, Intel was like a world-famous chef who only cooked their own secret recipes in their own private kitchen. Well, now they're opening up that state-of-the-art kitchen to the entire world, basically saying, hey, you bring us the recipe and we'll cook it for you. They're becoming a factory for other companies' chip designs. And this plan has some serious money behind it. The U.S. government is putting in almost $9 billion from the CHIPS Act. Their new partner, NVIDIA, they're investing $5 billion. And the investment giant SoftBank, they're kicking in another $2 billion. I mean, when you see names like that putting billions of dollars on the table, that is a massive vote of confidence. This whole foundry strategy also fits perfectly with a major push from the US government to bring critical manufacturing back to America. By building these advanced chips in brand new factories in places like Arizona, Intel is making itself a key player in securing the country's own semiconductor supply chain.
So, we had a great quarter, and the big strategy is clear. But what about right now? What does the road ahead look like? Let's take a look at the company's own forecast.
Okay, here's their official guidance for the next quarter. They expect revenue to be in a pretty similar range, between 12.8 and 13.8 billion. Now, you might notice the gross margin and EPS are guided a bit lower. That's mainly because they're spending a lot of money right now to get their next-generation products ready to go. So it's a cautious but pretty stable outlook, which makes sense given the huge investments they're making.
And speaking of those next-gen products, this is the one you really need to keep an eye on, the new Panther Lake chip. So, why does this matter so much? Because this is the very first chip they're building on their most advanced, brand new manufacturing technology, something called Intel 18A. This chip is their big play to win the next wave of AI-powered PCs, and its success is going to be a massive test.
So this all brings us to the final big question. Intel's plan is huge, it's ambitious, and it's now backed by billions and billions of dollars. But in a world with such fierce competition coming from every angle, can they actually execute this complicated strategy fast enough to truly lead the industry again? Well, that remains the multi-billion-dollar question.